Omega deliberately failed the Luna trial. Alpha King noticed her pain and claimed her. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Lena Whitaker had always been considered weak by those around her. She was an Omega, one of the lowest ranks in the werewolf society, and her failure to pass the Luna trial had sealed her fate as an outcast. The trial was an ancient and sacred test, one that every Omega had to undergo to prove their worth to the Alpha. If they failed, they were rejected, cast aside like broken pieces of a puzzle that no longer fit. But Lena had a secret, one that she had carried with her since childhood. She didn't want to pass the trial. She deliberately failed, choosing to face the rejection rather than submit to a life she never wanted. It wasn't that she didn't have the strength or the ability to pass, it was that she didn't believe in the system that judged her worth. She wasn't going to play by their rules, and she was prepared to endure the consequences. When the day of the trial came, Lena stood before the Alpha and the pack, her heart heavy with a mixture of fear and defiance. She knew what they expected from her, what they thought of her. She was the broken Omega, the one no one cared about. Her knees trembled as she stepped forward, but she kept her head high, refusing to let them see the storm raging inside her. The trial began, and as the challenges unfolded, Lena played her part. She faltered in the tests, her movements slow and hesitant, her mind clouded with doubt. The pack watched in silence, some with pity, others with disdain. They expected nothing less from her, and they were right. She failed. But then, something unexpected happened. As Lena knelt on the ground, her heart aching with the weight of her failure, she noticed him. Alpha Damien Thornridge, the ruler of their territory, was watching her closely. His sharp, silver eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time, she felt something stir within her. It wasn't pity. It wasn't mockery. It was something deeper, something she couldn't quite understand. Damien had always been a figure of immense power, cold and untouchable. But as Lena's pain echoed in the air, he did something no one expected. He stood up. His tall figure loomed over the crowd, his commanding presence silencing every whisper. The pack held its breath as he walked toward Lena, his steps slow but deliberate. He reached her, kneeling before the broken Omega who had failed the trial. "You've endured enough," he said, his voice low and steady, carrying the weight of authority. The entire pack watched in stunned silence as Alpha Damien extended his hand to Lena. She hesitated, unsure of what was happening, but the moment their hands touched, something shifted. A wave of warmth spread through her, and she realized, with a mixture of shock and relief, that the Alpha had claimed her. "You are mine now," he declared, his words echoing through the crowd. "No one will ever reject you again." The pack stood still, their eyes wide, as Lena, the broken Omega, was lifted from the ashes of her failure. Alpha Damien had not only seen her pain, but he had also recognized something in her that no one else had. She was more than the trials. She was his. From that moment on, Lena's life would never be the same. She was no longer the rejected Omega. She was the Alpha King's mate. I didn't understand what was happening, nor did I want to. Lena Whitaker had failed the Luna trial on purpose, but when Alpha Damien Thornridge stepped in to claim her, the world she had known, the world she had so desperately tried to reject, began to shift. The touch of his hand had felt like fire, and in that moment, Lena felt something stir deep within her, a sense of belonging that she had never known before. Damien stood tall, his powerful figure a stark contrast to her fragile form. She had been the Omega nobody cared about, but now, as his mate, the weight of his presence surrounded her like a shield. The whispers of the pack were deafening, yet Damien's declaration silenced them all. "You are mine." Now, he had said, his voice strong, filled with unyielding resolve. Lena looked up into his silver eyes, the same eyes that had watched her fail, now filled with something else, something deeper. As he helped her to her feet, she could feel the warmth of his touch, steady and sure. It was the first time anyone had ever treated her like she mattered. She had always been the one left behind, the one who couldn't measure up to the others, but now, in Damien's eyes, she saw a different future. They walked together through the crowd, the pack members stepping aside as they passed, their gazes filled with awe and confusion. Some couldn't believe it, while others were envious, but none dared challenge the Alpha King's decision. Damien didn't acknowledge the murmurs around them. His attention was fully on Lena, guiding her through the sea of onlookers as if nothing else mattered. It was a feeling Lena had never experienced before, being cared for, protected. They reached the Grand Hall, the heart of the pack's territory, where the most sacred ceremonies were held. The scent of pine and earth mixed with the faint traces of the night's celebration still lingering in the air. Damien led her to the center of the room, his hand never leaving hers. He turned to face her, his gaze unwavering. "Lena, from this moment on, you will be by my side. No one will ever look down on you again." Lena's heart beat faster, not from fear, but from something she had never known: hope. She had spent years trying to hide, trying to fade into the background, but now, in Damien's presence, she felt like she could stand tall. "But I'm not like the others," Lena whispered, her voice soft, vulnerable. "I can't be what they expect of me." Damien smiled, a rare, genuine smile that softened his usually stern face. "You don't have to be like anyone else, Lena. You're perfect as you are. I chose you, not because of what you can do, but because of who you are." His words echoed in her mind, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a mistake. She didn't feel like a failure. She felt like she had a place in this world, beside him. The pack was still in shock, but Damien's presence was enough to keep them at bay. He had made his decision, and nothing could change that. Lena's past, her fears, her failures, all of it didn't matter anymore. She was here, with him, and that was enough. The weight of the future felt lighter now, and for the first time, Lena didn't feel like she was walking through life alone. She was by the side of the Alpha King, the one who had seen her pain and chosen to claim her, not as a duty, but as a mate. And in that moment, Lena realized that the life she had feared wasn't one of rejection. It was a life of acceptance, of love, and of power. A life she would share with Damien, her Alpha King. I was still trying to comprehend everything that had happened. Lena Whitaker, a broken Omega who had deliberately failed the Luna trial, had found herself claimed by Alpha King Damien Thornridge. What she had never expected was to feel this way, not rejected, not abandoned, but chosen. As they stood in the heart of the Grand Hall, surrounded by the pack, the weight of the moment settled on her shoulders. Alpha Damien's presence was overwhelming, and Lena could hardly believe that he, the most powerful man in their world, had chosen her. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," Damien had told her, his voice deep and comforting. His words had stayed with her, growing stronger as the night progressed. The pack members had watched in silence, their confusion evident. Lena knew they must be questioning Damien's decision. After all, she was nothing like the strong, capable women they expected the Alpha King to choose. She was an Omega, weak, frail, and far from what they considered worthy of their leader. Yet Damien had seen her. He had recognized something in her that no one else had. It wasn't her strength or her appearance, but her spirit. He had chosen her not because she could meet the pack's expectations but because he understood that she had the strength to endure, to overcome, and to rise. As the night wore on, Damien led Lena through the pack's territory. They walked side by side, and for the first time in her life, Lena didn't feel like an outcast. His presence by her side made her feel like she belonged. Damien had promised her a life where she would never be looked down upon again. He had promised her a life where she would be loved and protected. When they reached his private quarters, Lena was still in awe of the way the Alpha King had treated her. The luxurious room, with its grand fireplace and beautiful decor, seemed to belong to a different world altogether. Yet it was now her world too. Damien stood by the window, his gaze distant. "Do you regret it?" he asked, his voice soft, as if he were speaking to himself. Lena shook her head, her heart beating faster at the thought. "No," she replied, her voice steady. "I don't regret it. I never knew what it felt like to be seen before. To matter. Damien turned to face her, his silver eyes reflecting a deep, emotional understanding. "You matter, Lena," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "You've always mattered. I see you." The words were simple, but they carried a weight Lena had never felt before. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was truly seen, like she was no longer invisible. It wasn't just Damien's words that made her heart soar. It was the way he looked at her, the way he treated her with such tenderness and respect. Lena had never known this kind of care. It was foreign to her, yet it felt like it was meant for her. She wasn't just the broken Omega. She was his mate, and that fact was slowly sinking in. "We will face everything together, Lena," Damien said, his voice resolute. "You will never be alone again." In that moment, Lena realized that her life had changed forever. She had been chosen by the Alpha King, and that meant everything. She no longer had to fight for her place in the world. Damien had already given her a place beside him. The future was uncertain, but with him by her side, Lena knew she could face anything. "I didn't know what to expect next. After everything that had happened, Alpha Damien's unexpected claim of me as his mate, I had thought that things might slow down, that I would have time to process it all. But that was not the way of the Alpha King." The days following his declaration were a whirlwind, filled with preparations, new responsibilities, and a sense of purpose I had never felt before. Damien was always by my side, his presence a constant. Comforting reminder that I was no longer invisible. I was no longer the weak Omega I had once been. Together, we would face the challenges that lay ahead. But for all the promise of a new life, I could still feel the weight of the Pack's judgment. The Pack had accepted Damien's decision, but there were still murmurs, still the occasional glance of doubt. They were all wondering why he had chosen me, and I could feel their eyes on me whenever I walked through the halls. Some were curious, others jealous, but none dared to challenge him. They didn't need to. Damien's authority was enough to keep them in line. Despite the tension, I could feel a subtle shift in the air. I was starting to feel like I belonged. It wasn't just about the power Damien held, it was about him seeing me for who I truly was. For the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't trying to fade into the background. I was standing tall, not just as an Omega, but as his mate. We were walking toward the future together, and that thought filled me with a sense of pride I never thought I would have. One evening, after a long day filled with meetings and ceremonies, Damien took me to the balcony of his chambers. The moonlight bathed the courtyard below, casting everything in a silvery glow. The air was cool, the scent of pine and earth lingering around us. Damien stood next to me, his gaze fixed on the horizon. I felt a surge of warmth as he turned to look at me, his silver eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. "Lena," he began, his voice low, almost reverent. "You have shown me more strength than anyone ever gave you credit for. You chose to stand up for yourself, even when it seemed like the world was against you. You've proven that you're not the broken Omega they all thought you were." His words washed over me, and for the first time, I felt truly seen. Not just by him, but by the world. "I never wanted to be like them," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the sound of the night. "I never wanted to fit into their mold. I wanted to be me." Damien's smile softened, and he took my hand in his grip warm and reassuring. "That's what I see in you, Lena," he said. "You don't have to be like anyone else. You are perfect just as you are." In that moment, I realized something: Damien wasn't just my alpha. He wasn't just the ruler of the Pack. He was the man who had seen through all the layers of my self-doubt and pain. He had chosen me, not because I was strong or perfect, but because I was me. The world outside might not understand, but that didn't matter anymore. With Damien by my side, I knew I could face whatever came next. The Pack might have their doubts, but I had found my place in this world. And it was beside him. As we stood there, looking out over the Pack's territory, I knew that the future was ours to shape. Together, we would face the challenges, the obstacles, and the joys that awaited us. And no matter what happened, I would never have to walk alone again. I had never imagined that my life could change so dramatically in such a short time. From the moment Alpha Damien had claimed me, everything had shifted. No longer the invisible Omega, I stood beside him, not just as his mate, but as a woman who had found her place in this world. The pack's skepticism still lingered, but Damien's unwavering support gave me the strength to ignore their whispers. With him, I was more than I had ever thought I could be. Days passed in a blur of new responsibilities, ceremonies, and moments where I was reminded of the trust and respect Damien had placed in me. The pack members who had once looked down on me now looked to me for guidance, and while their eyes still held traces of disbelief, there was a change in their demeanor. I had become something they hadn't expected, someone worthy of their Alpha King. It was not easy, of course. There were still moments of doubt, moments where the weight of my new role seemed too heavy to bear. But whenever I looked into Damien's silver eyes, I was reminded that I wasn't doing this alone. He was with me every step of the way. One evening, as we walked through the forest surrounding the pack's territory, the scent of pine and earth filling the air, I found myself talking more freely with Damien than I ever had before. "Damien, do you ever wonder why things turned out this way?" I asked, the question lingering in the stillness of the night. He paused, his gaze thoughtful as he looked up at the moon. "I don't wonder why, Lena," he replied, his voice steady, the depth of his words filling the space between us. "I believe everything happens for a reason. Even you, even me. The moon had a plan all along, and now we're here, together. That's what matters." His words resonated with me in a way I couldn't explain. For so long, I had fought against the idea of fate, of destiny, thinking I was meant to be nothing more than an outcast. But now, standing beside Damien, I couldn't deny that the pieces of my life were finally coming together. "I never thought I would be here," I whispered, my voice barely above the wind. "I never thought anyone would choose me." Damien stopped walking and turned to face me. His hand gently cupped my face, his thumb brushing across my cheek in a tender, almost reverent gesture. "I chose you because I saw who you truly are, Lena," he said, his silver eyes searching mine with a depth that took my breath away. "Not because of your status or your strength, but because of the heart inside you. You've always been strong in ways no one could see." His words struck me harder than I expected. No one had ever spoken to me like this, not my family, not the pack, not even my own inner voice. But Damien, with all his power, had seen me, truly seen me, and in that moment, I realized something I hadn't fully understood before. I was not just a tool to be used by the pack. I was not just the broken Omega they had all believed me to be. I was Lena, a woman worthy of love and respect, and now, standing beside the man who had chosen me, I knew I had a future filled with purpose. "Damien, I don't want to be just a figure beside you," I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. "I want to help lead this pack, with you. I want to stand by your side, not just as your mate, but as someone who has a voice." Damien's smile softened, and he nodded, his expression filled with pride. "You already have a voice, Lena. And together, we will lead. As equals." Those words filled me with a sense of belonging I had never known. No longer would I be the outcast. No longer would I feel as though I didn't belong. With Damien by my side, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, and I would be more than just a bystander in my own life. I would stand beside him, not just as his mate, but as a woman who had found her place in this world. I never imagined how quickly everything could change. From the moment Damien had claimed me, my life had become a whirlwind of unfamiliar emotions, responsibilities, and realizations. As the days passed, I grew more comfortable in my new role, but there was still a lingering sense of disbelief. It was as if I was still waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the moment when everything would come crashing down. But with every passing day, Damien proved me wrong. He had made it clear that he was not just my alpha, but my partner. He had chosen me for who I was, not for my title or my strength. And slowly, I was beginning to believe in that. One evening, as we sat together in the grand hall, surrounded by the pack, I noticed how much the dynamics had shifted. The whispers had faded, the looks of doubt replaced by a quiet respect. Damien's decision to claim me had been unexpected, but it had also brought a sense of unity to the pack. They were beginning to see me not as the weak Omega I had once been, but as the woman who stood beside their alpha. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when I still felt the weight of their judgment, when I wondered if they were truly accepting me or just tolerating my presence. But every time I looked at Damien, I knew I didn't have to worry. He was there, unwavering, supporting me every step of the way. One night, after a long day of meetings and planning, Damien took me to the garden. The moonlight bathed the flowers and the trees, casting everything in a soft, silver glow. It was peaceful, almost surreal. "You've come a long way, Lena," Damien said, his voice low and filled with admiration. I turned to face him, my heart swelling at his words. "I never thought I would be here," I admitted. "I never thought I would matter. Not to anyone." He reached out and took my hand, his touch warm and comforting. "You've always mattered, Lena. You matter to me." His words struck a chord deep within me. I had spent so many years feeling insignificant, like I was just a tool to be used by the pack. But with Damien, I was someone. I was his mate. "I don't think I fully understand what that means," I confessed. "What does it mean to be your mate?" Damien smiled softly, stepping closer. "It means we face everything together. It means that no matter what happens, you are never alone. You are mine, and I am yours. We lead together." His words were filled with so much conviction, so much certainty. And in that moment, I felt it. I felt the bond that connected us, the strength of our partnership. I wasn't just the alpha's mate. I was his equal. "You don't have to be perfect," he continued, his gaze never leaving mine. "You're perfect just as you are. And together, we will create something stronger than either of us could do alone." I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer that broken Omega. I was Lena Whitaker, the woman who had found her place beside the Alpha King. And with him by my side, I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I stood by Damien's side, my heart racing with a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. It had been several weeks since he claimed me as his mate, and though I had grown more comfortable in my new role, there was still so much to learn. Damien, as always, had been my constant support, guiding me through the intricacies of pack politics, leadership, and the expectations that came with being the Alpha King's mate. But despite the chaos around us, there were moments when it felt like it was just the two of us. Those moments made all the difference. One such moment came on a quiet evening, after the pack had settled down for the night. Damien and I sat on the balcony of the palace, the cool evening air wrapping around us like a soft blanket. The moon hung low in the sky, casting its silver light over the kingdom, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to stand still. "Lena," Damien said, breaking the silence. I turned to face him, my heart skipping a beat at the way he looked at me. There was a tenderness in his gaze, a softness that was reserved only for me. "Yes?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You're doing well," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You've come so far. I'm proud of you." The words hit me harder than I expected. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. In my old life, I had been invisible, insignificant. But with Damien, I was seen. I was valued. I felt a warmth spread through my chest as I smiled at him. "Thank you," I whispered. "It's all because of you." He shook his head, his silver eyes never leaving mine. "No, Lena. You're strong on your own. You've always been strong. You just needed someone who believed in you." The sincerity in his words brought a lump to my throat. For so long, I had doubted myself, thinking I was unworthy of anything more than rejection. But now, standing by Damien's side, I was beginning to understand that I was more than enough. "Damien," I said softly, reaching out to take his hand in mine. "What comes next? What does our future hold?" He gave me a reassuring smile, his hand tightening around mine. "Whatever it is, we face it together," he said. "We've already faced the hardest part, finding each other. Now, we build something strong, something lasting. And I know we will." His words were filled with certainty, and in that moment, I knew he was right. Together, we could face anything. No matter what challenges the future brought, I had found my place beside him. as his mate, as his equal. And that was all I needed. The night stretched on, the silence between us comfortable, peaceful. For the first time in my life, I felt truly at home, not just in the palace, but in my own skin. I was no longer the broken Omega. I was the Alpha King's mate. And together, we would rule the pack, face the challenges ahead, and build the future we both deserved. I had never imagined that my life would take such an extraordinary turn. After everything that had happened with Damien, I found myself standing in a place I had once thought unreachable. The woman who had once been invisible, overlooked, was now the mate of the Alpha King, an equal by his side. The pack had begun to accept me, and though there were still occasional murmurs and sideways glances, there was also a growing respect. With each passing day, I could feel the weight of the position I now held, and it filled me with both pride and uncertainty. There was still so much to learn, so much to do, but Damien was there, guiding me every step of the way. We spent more time together, discussing the future of the pack, making plans, and learning how to lead side by side. The bond between us grew stronger, the connection between us undeniable. One evening, after a long day of meetings and planning, we walked together through the forest near the palace. The cool night air brushed against my skin, and the sound of the wind rustling through the trees was calming. "Lena," Damien said, his voice breaking the peaceful silence. I turned to look at him, noticing the intensity in his silver eyes. "Yes?" I asked, my heart skipping a beat at the way he looked at me. "I want you to know something," he continued, his voice soft yet filled with conviction. "You are not just my mate. You are my partner, and together, we will build a future that is stronger than anything either of us could do alone." His words hit me harder than I expected. He had always made it clear that we were equals, but hearing him say it so openly made it real in a way I hadn't fully understood before. "I've always wondered if I could truly belong," I said quietly, almost to myself. "If I could ever be more than just the Omega." Damien stopped walking, turning to face me. He reached out, gently cupping my face in his hands, his touch tender and reassuring. "You belong, Lena," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "Not because of your status, not because of your title, but because of who you are. You have always belonged, and now the world will see that." I felt my breath catch in my throat as I looked into his eyes. For the first time, I truly understood what he meant. I wasn't just a mate, a role I had been given. I was a woman of strength, of value, and I had found a place where I was seen, truly seen. The future we were building was not one of expectations or duties, it was one of choice, of love, and of partnership. "I will always be by your side," I whispered, my voice steady with the promise of my words. "And together, we will face whatever comes next." Damien smiled, his gaze softening as he pulled me into an embrace. "Together," he agreed, his voice filled with the certainty of everything we had already built. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the world around us seemed to fade away. All that mattered was the bond we shared, the strength we drew from one another, and the future that lay ahead. With Damien by my side, I knew that I had found my place, not just in this pack, but in the world. And no matter what challenges came our way, I was ready to face them, as his partner, his mate, and his equal. I had never imagined how much I could change in such a short time. From the moment Damien had claimed me, everything had shifted. The woman who had once been invisible, the one who lived in the shadows, was now standing side by side with the Alpha King. We were equals in a way I had never thought possible. The respect that Damien had shown me had allowed me to see myself in a new light. I had spent so many years feeling unworthy, but now, with Damien by my side, I was beginning to understand that I was more than just a broken Omega. The days were passing quickly, and with every passing moment, I found myself becoming more comfortable in my new role. The pack still had their doubts, but they no longer looked at me with disdain. Instead, they were watching me, waiting to see how I would lead. It wasn't easy, of course. There were still moments when the weight of it all felt overwhelming. But each time I turned to Damien, I knew I wasn't alone. He had made it clear from the beginning that we were in this together. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Damien and I found ourselves alone in the garden. The cool breeze of the evening wrapped around us as the stars above twinkled in the night sky. Lena, Damien said, his voice soft but filled with purpose. I turned to face him, feeling the warmth of his gaze. Yes? I asked, my heart beating faster. He smiled, a rare, genuine smile that reached his eyes. I want you to know how much you mean to me, he said, stepping closer. You've changed everything for me, Lena. You've shown me a strength I didn't know I needed. I felt a rush of emotions, gratitude, love, and something deeper I couldn't name. For so long, I had thought I was broken, that I was nothing. But Damien had seen something in me that no one else had, and now, standing in front of him, I realized how far I had come. I never imagined I could be the person I am now, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I never thought I would matter. Damien reached out, his hand gently cupping my face, his thumb brushing across my skin. You matter, Lena. You've always mattered. The words filled me with a warmth I couldn't explain. He had given me something I had never had before, a sense of self-worth. I will always stand by your side, I whispered, my voice steady with the promise. Together, we will build a future that no one can break. Damien's smile grew wider, and for a moment, the world around us seemed to disappear. It was just the two of us, standing together, ready to face whatever came next. Together, he said, his voice filled with conviction. We will create a legacy, Lena. Not just for us, but for the pack, for everyone who believes in us. I felt the bond between us grow stronger in that moment. I wasn't just his mate. I wasn't just the woman standing beside him. I was his partner, and together, we would lead the pack into a future that was full of promise. As we stood there, surrounded by the beauty of the garden, I knew that no matter what challenges we faced, we would face them together. And for the first time in my life, I truly believed in our future. The future I had once thought was beyond my reach was now ours to shape.